Okay, then let's do so. The last round. Then you can prepare, you can review, and you can ask questions at some stage. If I'm able, I'll try to help you. And what we are talking about so far, as I said, was looking at the two sides, production and exchange, the gaining side, the claiming side, how do we actually get income, get return. And we said we do this within a national framework. Usually. We said we have other frameworks as well. We have the framework, for instance, of the BRICS. We have the framework of the European Union. We have the framework, which is not yet a full framework, of the MINT. That's a new invention. I don't know if there ever will be mints or not, but it's groupings of countries that combine forces, if you want, to improve the economic situation. But already these instances show that this national framework is not given once forever. And when we talk about national economies, we usually, in stricto sensu, we would talk about closed economies. There's nobody allowed to leave and there's nobody allowed to come. And this is not about people, but it's about people as well, people coming to work or people leaving to work, but it is as well about import and export. It is about capital going out. So those who want to go to Britain in a closed economy, forget it. The economy is only here. You can't change money, you can't get products from there or export products. So this is the idea of closed economies, and then we of course know that these closed economies don't exist. And then we come to this little game or playing field. We talked about institutionalist approaches. And what we have is institutions. And these institutions are formal rules and informal rules that actually keep this entity together. The institution is somebody or something saying this is the border. And within this border, you can retire with 50, but you have to start working with 10. Or you start with 25, and then you still can stop with 50. And this, one of the rules may be, we actually don't have easy export. We want to have our products here. You can export, but the rule is you have to pay taxes, a special tax on export. The rule is certain quality standards. The rule is copyright. All these are rules, and you know it from law. And they are sometimes formal, and sometimes they are informal. As Douglas North defines it, institutions are the formal and informal rules of the game, including their enforcement mechanisms. Go to the basketball field, look around what is happening there. There are rules. There are people playing around with the rules and using them in a very relaxed way, informally, and they know how far they can go. And then you have organizations. And organizations are the players of the game, including those who make, control, and enforce these rules. You have two teams. You have players on the field in different positions, and they play the game. And of course, you have as well on this field somebody who looks if you obey the rules. If you step over a certain line, you will here come back, give the ball to the other team, and you start a new round. But you have as well governance as a matter of how the game is played. Meaning what is really happening here? It's the application of the rules. So you have the rules, but it is still a different way of working with them, of using them, of utilizing them. Then finally, you have public policies and public policies are the outcomes of this game. It is the merger of the others. It's the merger of institutions, organizations, governments. This is what is the outcome. And this is exactly what happens with open and closed economies. You have this playing field on the global level, and you have different actors there applying, using these rules that are formally there, that are informally established. Everybody knows how to behave or not. Everybody knows how far I can disrespect the rules and how far I can't. But we are playing this game on the international scale. And then we are, of course, back as well to this, circularity and equilibrium. We are trying to balance these different dimensions by way of getting the most out of the entire game for our team. And we still have national economies. Leaving all the talk about globalization aside, we still have national players. It's just a statement. It's just an analytical statement. Don't ask me if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't mind. Don't ask me if it is relevant for me. It is relevant because every time I cross the border, I have to show my passport. Every time I cross the border, even if I don't have to show my passport, I have to have it with me. So it exists. It is not my personal valuation. It's not my personal will. But I have to respect in one way or another the rule. You latest see this when you cross the border and you get special treatment every time you try to cross the border. All right, your passport, could you just come to the office, please? I don't know why they did this game with me. Probably they thought it's funny. But I have had a phase where I could beg, just go 1 hour early because you will be double-checked. You get used to it. I didn't do anything wrong. At least I'm not aware of it. But I guess there was something wrong with the computer. Didn't like me. Okay. But this is the rule, how it works. You have the rules in place, and you have to respect them. You have to pay the taxes, at least at some stage. And of course, as we know as well, if you are clever enough, you don't pay the taxes. You find a way around it. At least for some time. You may be lucky. Today it's getting more and more difficult. At some stage they find papers in Panama or somewhere else, and they know how much money you did not tax. So we have this idea of a growth orientation and a dynamic society, dynamic economy. And this is what we want to do. We want to develop our own wealth, and for this we use the foreign market in addition to the domestic market. Our domestic markets are defined in this way. There are cultural values as well. What kind of products do we like to have? And this, of course, changes over time. And then you play this game, and you have to think about why do you actually produce certain things in your country, domestically, and why do you export them? One reason is simply you don't have it. Especially raw material. There are certain raw materials you don't have. Every country, there are certain raw materials, they don't exist in this country. So if you want to have them, you have to import them. You have to get them from somewhere else. This means as well, other countries may actually have too much of it. This reference to the oil exporting countries. They have too much oil. They don't know what to do with this oil. They cannot consume it on their own. Other countries, they don't have enough. So you have the import-export relationship there. And then there comes the problem of transport. You have to get it from A to B. Is it worthwhile to transport it? If you really need the product but you do not have it yourself, it's a simple decision. But if you actually have the oil field, but your oil field is a little bit deeper, you have to decide, here we are, you have to decide, is it worthwhile to import it, to pay for the cost, to pay for the higher price, or do I dig the hole deeper here to get it out of my own ground? These are then details that you can calculate it easily, looking at what does it cost, what does the transport cost, what is the benefit of it. But you first have to decide what to do with it. And this is a decision on the market, but it is as well a political decision in terms of the government saying we want to promote our own industries, our own economic activities. Therefore, we make export profitable, attractive, but we make import not attractive, not being attractive. We make import expensive. Or the other way around. You promote export, you don't have to pay the same amount of taxes if you export goods as you would have to pay for selling them domestically. So there are different options, and the overall idea is always, how do we get the best benefit, most of it, for our national economy? For our national economy can mean different things. It can mean we are talking about the aggregate, we are talking about the overall performance, or it can mean we are talking about the distribution. And this, of course, goes hand in hand, but these are different things. Coming back to our beautiful curve, dynamic economies, we can try to influence it by shifting this outward, producing more, having an increasing economic activity. Or we can say, we don't look for an overall increase, but we are actually looking for changes in the distribution. We are increasing employment, reducing the unemployment rate, because this is important that people get income, and with the income they can consume, with the income they get better housing, or they get housing, accommodation. With the income they can improve their living standard. This is our thinking. It does not say that it is the only thing that improves living standard. We are talking about economic activities in terms of aggregate demand, in terms of GDP. So it is this decision of opening or closing the economy. And for this, the net export rate is decisive. We always consider that we are actually dealing with open or relative open economies. We are not closing them, but we are dealing with the true figures of export and import, trying to get the overall standard higher in terms of dynamic, in terms of growth, or trying to get the distribution into a different direction. Having not more, but having more for everybody. It's a huge difference. Having more, we are dealing simply with this production possibility function and with Pareto optimum. We maximize the activities. We are not linking it, we are not looking at the distribution. We can change this and say we do not have a shift here, but we have a shift along this line and redistribute the resources we have. And of course, usually it goes hand in hand. We do both. We produce more, and at the same time, part of this production is going to a small group of people, and part of it is influencing the living standard of everybody, of the masses. It's a politically different decision, and the challenge is to balance this. In terms of the technological issues of possibilities, and in terms of the distribution of goods. Always consider whatever we export is positive in inverted commas. It means we gain from it. Export means somebody buys our products. And if we sell something, it's the other way around. If we sell something, we get income from there, and the income is part of our wealth. The other way around, everything we import, and now it's getting difficult, everything we import improves our living standard because we get goods that we want or need, or that we need or want. Why did I say now it's getting difficult? Because now we have to pay for it. And of course we cannot simply pay and pay and pay without getting any return. So we have to look for some way of balancing the two sides. Trade balance, this is the term. And there we talked about something in one of the lectures, namely in session 5. We talked about limits of substitutions, of substitution. Limits of substitution has different dimensions. The one dimension, we talked about it today already, even if we did not refer to it. Different forms of capital. We can substitute certain capital by others. We can work more and employ less machine. We can work less and employ more machine. Substitution of capital. We can do something similar with goods and services. What you find today is you buy more refined goods. You buy your prepared meals, your ready meal. Meaning you buy implicitly, it's included a service. You buy the service that somebody else prepared it, and you only have to put it into the microwave, wait 3 minutes or something, and that's it. I was once invited to a Christmas party years ago, and in Ireland Christmas is very, very important. And this poor couple said, we worked 2 hours to two days to prepare this Christmas meal. Even the Christmas pudding, those who go to Bangor will have this experience and getting a real Christmas pudding. And what you do is actually you buy one in the shop. It takes about 3 minutes to heat it up, and that's it. If you do it from the scratch, it takes about 8 hours. I couldn't believe it. So what you do is you buy the service by somebody else. It's in this Christmas pudding. It's a red little bowl. I don't know if it's nice. At least it's interesting. So this is where you substitute a good, or where you substitute goods and services. And this is as well what you do when it comes to domestic and international trade. Instead of producing domestically, you give it away basically and say, you can do this, and I just get it back when it's ready. And you find exactly what you found at the beginning of capitalism: division of labor. We talked about Adam Smith and this famous example of the pin, producing a pin. I don't know how many people had been involved in producing this one pin. If I remember correctly, it had been 60. But it doesn't matter. You have this one setting, one enterprise setting, and there people are doing different things, small little things, and at the end of the day you have this product. Hugely productive. If one person would start at the scratch and produce a needle, a pin, individually, you wouldn't be as productive as they have been. Read it. It's bedside reading. It's entertaining. How to produce a pin. How to make things complicated. Actually, don't make it complicated, you make it much simpler. And this is what we find now, having open economies on the global market, in the global economy. Some countries produce raw material, some countries refine it, and some countries make a final product out of it. Don't even try to understand this completely. I once read about car production. Cars are simply so important. It's not for me. Cars are an important part of the economy. So there was an article about car production. And what do? You have your one company and you produce a car and that's it, right? No. This was about a car, I don't know the make, the brand, produced in Germany, but not really. There was a Spanish company involved as well. And of course, if you want to buy a car, you want to have a new car, meaning 0 miles or 0 kilometers. Now what do? You build the car, you construct the car in Germany. George? As a special car, new model. But of course it is a new car, it is a very special car, and you want to have it even more special than it is. And you want a convertible. You all know what a convertible is? Take the roof off during the summer and it's nice, it's beautiful. And what do? You have the car produced in Germany. It's complete, the wheels are there. But now you take the wheels off, 0 miles, ship this thing to Spain. Why? As I said, don't try to understand it. I don't know why. There are taxation plays a role, there are production costs, there are many things playing a role. What do you do in Spain? It's pretty easy in this way. You cut off the roof. It's great, isn't it? You first put it on and then you cut it off. And then you put this little convertible thing there that you can have the roof, actually you can close it at some stage. It's this, I don't know what material they use. What do you do next? You ship this thing back to Germany, but you have to get it on a train, on a ship or aircraft or whatsoever, because there are no wheels. So in Germany, you put the wheels back on it and you sell this car. As I said, don't try to understand all the details. It is about taxation. It is about different ways of promoting industries. It is about actually as well inner-company business, because of course this is usually the same company and they save a huge amount of taxes. They save as well a huge amount of profit which they can make this way because they make it in one country and they don't have to tax it in the other country. You all may be involved in this, working as accountants, making the calculations. How do we rip this world off? Where do we get the best return? You may do it in finance to say, we talked about arbitrage, how do we get the most out of exchange rates? Because this can be part of it, that you actually play around, if it's not Spain, which has as well the euro, if you move it to another country, you may play with the exchange rate. This is what you have to know when it comes to why we open markets and why we don't open markets. And of course you have to know as well, and we talked about it, certain products you can easily trade, and then you have the non-tradables, because your haircut, you get it locally. You cannot send your hair to somewhere and say, just cut it and send it back to me. Some people can do it, but that's another story. And still it's not worthwhile to do it. And what do we actually do then finally, after looking at open and closed economies, and after looking at before the determination of return and the employment question, we are looking now at the interest rate, because the interest rate is one of the most important parts where the national central banks are a dominant player on this field, and say we use the interest rate, we use influencing the interest rate, we use monetary policies to increase or decrease economic activities. We can stimulate economic activities, or we can do the other way around. We talked about it in terms, or in the connection of, it was one of the effects on the aggregate demand, wealth effect, net export effect, and interest rate effect. So if we have the interest rate low, we can stimulate economic activities because we encourage people to take up a loan. We encourage consumers, and we encourage people who want to invest money. Here's the money. Do you want it? Yeah, take it. Here's the money. Do you want it? But you have to pay 1% for it. Okay, you still get it. Here's the money. 20%. No. So this is the way how we influence, or the central bank influences, economic activities. If the economy is too strong, we produce too much, we try using the interest rate to reduce it. We have the three monetary aggregates, M1, M2, M3. Especially important is that the availability, the immediacy of availability is different. M1, you can go to the bank, it is there. M3 is the security the bank has, the reserve the bank builds up to have money if needed. And if needed can mean if the economy is too weak, there are not enough economic activities, and the bank says, before we run into trouble, we provide the money and say, under the condition that you invest it, it's not necessarily said explicitly, but made implicitly, under the condition that you invest the money or that you use it for consumption, we give you the money for a low interest rate. Under the condition that the economy is overheated, we make it difficult for you to take more money out of the bank, to get more of a loan, because we don't want you actually to be more active. We don't want you to produce more. And this, or one of the typical things, is the housing market. Housing and building, housing and cars, housing and mobility are actually very important overall markets. And what actually happens with building, and its houses, its accommodation, its as well roads, they have a huge multiplier effect. But what happens is, if you build too many houses, you have too much accommodation, at some stage, nobody is able to buy it anymore or to rent it. So as simple as that, you have too many houses. So you try to get back away from this. You stop further investment, be it in absolute terms or improvement of housing, until the situation is going back to another equilibrium, and where you have actually the equilibrium between demand and supply. This is what happened in the United States in 2007. This is what happened in Ireland in 2007. House prices were mushrooming. You paid huge amounts of money for accommodation. Nobody could afford it anymore. And actually, it was not worth. The value of houses was not really as high as the market suggested. So this was complete overheating, and then it was going back to a realistic level, and the realistic level at that time was actually bankruptcy. So this is important. Keep in mind the different monetary aggregates that can be used to influence the interest rate, and that can be used to stimulate or to slow down economic activities. And we are back to the question where we started, not really the first one, but at least to economic activities in terms of GDP, in terms of aggregate demand, where we influence by using the interest rate, by using the banks to steer this economic process. An institution that actually is used as well to compensate, if you want, the malfunctions, the misfunctions, the dysfunctions of the market. The idea is there's an automatic equilibrium, The reality is, it is not the case. The reality is we need some mechanisms. The one mechanism is simply wait that this thing crashes, major crisis, or do something to avoid it and have some mechanisms in place that you can make sure that you have at least no extreme changes of the overall equilibrium. So this is what happens. This is what you should know. This is what you should review. And if you do this, you won't have any problems next Monday. And I get only perfect results in the exams. And you can do afterwards whatever you have to do, meaning go on to the third year and then start really learning more about the details. Thank you.